My name is Steve Conroy. I am the president of Silvastar Forest Products. And Silvastar this year is proud to be a sponsor of the LBM Fall Strategies Conference. And with that, it's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker this afternoon, Mr. Russ Kathrein. Got it. As the Vice President of Lumber and Building Materials for Do It Best and is a leadership columnist for LBM Journal, Russ knows a thing or two about what it takes to be a leader in the LBM industry. Just as there's tremendous opportunity to grow sales with existing customers, there is an incredible amount of underutilized talent on your team, if you only open your eyes. Today, Russ is going to share practical insights into how to discover exceptional talent that you may have been overlooking. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Russ Kathrein.
Thank you, sir. I was asked by Dean and Thea to come up and give a speech or talk to you guys today, and I was kind of given a lot of latitude on where I wanted to go with that. And I really got to thinking about something, as was mentioned, I do write a column for LBM Journal. I've done it for about 5 years, and I've really enjoyed it. And I don't do that because I think I'm an expert, and I don't do that because I'm real wonky about leadership. I do that for the new manager, the new man or woman who's a manager who's going, how do I do this? And what I try to do is I try and share my experiences, other people's experiences, and a lot of them are when we failed. That's when we learn. So I don't view it as a big ego trip for me, but I will share one time I got a little bit of an ego trip out of it. I just started with Do It Best, and I was going out visiting members, and they took me into a member where the buyer was notoriously negative. And they said, you just got to be warned. He is going to come in, and when we introduce you, he is going to beat you up. He's going to figure out a way to explain why you're not going to be good at your job, whatever, but he is just a negative experience. And the guys who were taking me around were almost looking forward to it because they're like, this is going to happen. We just want you to be ready for it. So I'm all right. So I walk in, I meet the owners, and I walk up to the guy, and he walks up to me, and he goes, I read your article every month. So that's my one fan that I have out there. The rest of you, I hope, just get something out of it when I do it. So what I want to start with is I wrote an article. The gist of this stems back to one article I wrote about 2 years ago. And it was called Seeing the Invisible People. This was not, it was kind of something I wrote about my experiences. It was something my best articles are the ones I get the best response from, are the ones I don't think a lot about and just kind of do it. And this one had just a tremendous response. In it, I quoted one of the person who said, it'd be easy to say I feel invisible, instead I feel painfully visible and entirely ignored. What I mean by the invisible people are the people in your organization who do the jobs that everyone kind of takes for granted, or they kind of get pigeonholed, or they fit a profile. Maybe they're not like everyone else. Maybe they're not like the norm or whatever, and we tend to overlook them. Another person came and said, sent me an email that said that I now realize why I've always struggled to enjoy my job, because they don't feel seen. And then the last one, which kind of gets me, thank you for finally seeing me. That one hit me. And I'll tell you why that hit me, because there's people out there working really, really hard for you guys. I mean, they're busting their butt, but they're doing a job that no one thinks is important, and they're invisible. So I want you to think about how we can make and find the people in our organization that are invisible. So let's talk about who they are. Sorry if I got a little emotional. That's what happens when you get older. You'll all find out about that. So what are some of the invisible people? And some of it's the menial tasks. Some of it's somebody who's different, maybe has a disability. Some of it could be someone who's of a different culture, a different race, as we're talking about here today. We typically talk about the lumber industry. It's a male-dominated industry. A lot of the women here, I'm sure, have felt invisible at times in their job. Sometimes it's somebody who's just in need, and they're just having a tough time, and we kind of categorize them as, ooh, I don't want to be around them. And then some of the time, they're someone that maybe is slightly on the spectrum, and they're just a little odd, and they don't fit in. And then the last one I'd like to talk about, what about that goofy person? That person that's just like fun or whatever, but they don't fit the mold of what a successful person would do in that job. You all have these people in your organization. So what I'm going to do with you today is I'm going to tell you some stories about some people and how they have transformed, or in some cases transformed me. So what I want to talk about is the power of words. And I'm going to talk about a couple key phrases. First one I want to talk about is simply, I see you. Very, very powerful. So I want to introduce you to Robin. Robin is our receptionist at Do It Best. I call her our hidden gem. Robin came in when I started at Do It Best almost 4 years ago. We're at our old headquarters, which is kind of this old warehouse. And the receptionist job was basically to greet vendors when they came in. And it was a high turnover job. It was an entry-level job. It paid a low wage. And it was an entry-level job, and everyone couldn't wait to get out of it. And it was, believe it or not, it was always women that were receptionists. So Robin came on one day, and she just had this flair to her. So what I had felt sorry for these people is because they were way up front and all the other divisions were in back, my LBM division was closest to the front door. So I went up one day and I just said to them, from here on out, you guys are part of the LBM division. And they're like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, well, if we bring in donuts, we're going to send you a note. Come on down and have donuts. If we bring in lunch, we do any celebrations, you are part of our division. And Robin just like totally ate that up. She's like, great. So all of a sudden, she started treating our vendors and our division just a little bit special. And she started really, and she was, I mean, I'm not going to take credit for the job Robin did. She's an amazing person. But this allowed her to be seen. And she's told me that. And now when we've moved to the new headquarters, she made the space totally her own, got involved in how to design it, wanted to talk about how we should greet vendors, and she is a lifer in that position, and she loves it. She wants to be that position. She wants to be the first person that people see when they walk in to Do It Best. And she takes that very intensely personal, and the responsibility is incredibly important to her, that she gets the information to the right people, that when she answers the phone and everything. Our people didn't do that before. Now, I am not going to be the kind of person that takes credit for that. I did not make Robin who she is. But what I played a part in was seeing her and letting her know that, hey, you can play a crucial role here if you want. And she did. How many other people do you have like that? So let me talk about another person. Jose Salgado, If I Were King. So my dad had a lumber yard in Chicago. My brother still has it. It's called Totem Lumber. When I grew up going to the lumber yard like we all probably did if we had family businesses, but the summer after my senior year, I went to work there. And Jose, so I was 18 years old, and Jose was there. Now, you gotta remember, this is the 80s. So Jose was fresh from over the border. And it was a little different world then in terms of illegal immigrants coming in. It was a lot more accepted. Jose was a hard worker, but Jose didn't speak any English. But Jose worked really hard, and he was the guy that got all the crappy jobs, and he just did them. Fast forward 4 or 5 years, I come back after doing some jobs in corporate America, and there's Jose. He's still in the yard. His English is a little better. He's married an American woman. He's applied for citizenship. He's doing all the right things. But he was still Jose. He was just that guy in the yard that just worked hard. So I went through yard foremans like crazy, trying to find a guy to run my yard because it was really, really difficult to find the right person who cared about the yard, could take care of the customers and that. But my one constant was Jose. You always had Jose out there that if he had to build the load or whatever, he was great. But Jose was not going to run the yard because Jose didn't speak English. Jose didn't have an education. That wasn't going to happen. And it wasn't a bias that I had overtly. It was just, looking back now, it's just something that I didn't think he was the guy. So I would hire guys in, and they'd fail. I'd hire guys in, they'd steal. I'd hire guys in to be the foreman, and they would lie. Finally, one day, I caught one of our foremen stealing from us, and I had to fire him. And I didn't have anybody to run the yard. And I was like, I gotta have something. So what I did is I called Jose in, and I said, I need you to take over the yard until I can find someone. He's like, okay. Not like, and told him I'd take care of him. I got to tell you, this guy in 2 weeks, the whole yard was organized. You saw how Ganol was? It felt like it went to that. He organized it, he changed things around, and I realized that for 8 years, 9 years, Jose had been there saying, I'm not going to say anything because no one wants my opinion, but if I were king, I'd run it this way. And as far as I know, Jose's still there running the yard. And he's just a great success story. But it took me to see him and give him that opportunity. And again, we categorize someone, oh, you don't have a college education. Oh, you're from a foreign country. Oh, you don't speak English good enough, whatever it is. But we don't know what the talents they have and what they want to give to us. So think about those people that you haven't seen in your organization. So let's talk about the power words again. This time let's talk about, I believe in you. So I want to talk about Megan. Megan works for me now. I think I can count, I'm not a doctor, but I can confidently say that Megan's probably on the spectrum a little bit. She's intensely good with details, but she doesn't pick up verbal cues from people real well. So I asked her so we hired her in an entry-level position and gave her, and she's a nice person, but she's just a little odd. And you know what you find yourself doing with people that are a little odd? You kind of keep them at arm's distance. I mean, I'll admit it. You know, the other people that came in that were real dynamic, had great personalities and that, you're like, oh, we're going to train you, we're going to move you into a trader position. That Megan's like, oh, we'll probably keep her where she's at, but she's really good at what she does. So I gave her this project that I wanted her to look up, and it had a list of 6,000 lumber yards. And I said, could you just look at the top 200 and do this analysis for me, because it's a really tedious job. She's like, okay. About 3 days later, she didn't drop it on me, she sent me an email, said open the file. She'd done all 6,000 because she loved it. And she said, if you can give me another project like that, I love that. I absolutely love that. It's like, wow, I've got this talent here. So then a couple other things came by, and she ended up stepping up and really helping us out when we were shorthanded. And all her peers now complimented her to me. So we were walking out of the building, and there was Megan, and I walk up to her and I said, hey, I heard you did a really good job. Thank you very much. And she said, oh, good, maybe now people will like me. I said, Megan, you don't need to be liked. You want to be respected. You're never going to convince them to like you. But you will convince them that you're worthy if you do hard work, and then you'll be accepted. But you're not going to, being liked is not going to get you accepted. And I've talked to my people and said, you make sure that she does not get mean girled, because a lot of times it was the other young ladies that we'd hired would kind of go off and they'd not include her. And it's made a difference for her. She's come along. And who else do you have? You know, the people we talk about handicaps. I mean, we at wrong company. At Do It Best, we have a lady who's been there a number of years. She's in a wheelchair, powered wheelchair. She's got a guide dog with her, and she does a great job. I mean, how many people are out there that are not exactly physically or mentally like we are? But they can do a job. They can do an amazing job. Megan, you give her the right job, she's amazing. Am I ever going to make her a trader? Is she ever going to sell? No. But could she support people? Could she do the tedious task? Could she do that? Absolutely. So, again, I had to tell her I believe in her. So let's talk about Dale. A number of years ago, I ran a wholesaler in Chicago, and Dale I inherited. He was my dispatcher, kind of my yard foreman, and he had a tough life growing up. Dad, when he graduated from high school, his dad said he was surprised that he graduated. He got married young and had a kid, and he was basically at work earning a wage. And he got put in charge because there was no one else. Dale would scream at people. Dale, his idea of being the boss is screaming at people, yelling at people, that kind of stuff. He wasn't successful. He wasn't being successful. He wasn't bad. He got the job done, but he wasn't successful. So we sat down, I talked with him, and I just said, you can do this. You've got this. And I think I actually said to him, I believe in you. I believe you can do this. And he said, no, I can't. I said, yes, you can. All of a sudden, his attitude changed, and he started diving into our computer system and finding out how the computer system could make his dispatching easier. And then he found out, we got to put weights in. If I put weights in, I can do the trucks. So then he started jumping. He's really detailed tasks and getting the programs to work well. And all of a sudden now, instead of manually having to figure out what went on the trucks, he could add it all up and it made his job easier. And then all of a sudden, he wasn't yelling at people anymore. Before he felt like he was failing at work, and then he'd go home and he didn't want to see his son see him because he felt like he was failing at home. Now all of a sudden he was succeeding. And it was really taken off, and it was really a lot of fun. So I had an opportunity, I had to move on and leave the company. Didn't really think much about it, but I ran into a vendor about 10 years later, and he said, hey, there's a guy who used to work for you. I go, yeah, his name's Dale. I go, oh, yeah, I remember Dale. I go, what's he doing now? He goes, he's running our treating plant. Brand new treating plant. He's the general manager. He runs it. I'm like, really? So I called him up, and I said, hey, how you doing, Dale? He's like, oh, man, I'm so glad you called me. He goes, yeah. He said, no, I you really helped me out. And he goes, I went back and I got my bachelor's degree. And he goes, one thing you said to me is, once you're on my team, you're always on my team. And whenever I always know, you believed in me. So there's a guy, I'd love to say I did that because I was so smart. I just got lucky. I just said the right words. But I realized those words have a lot of power. And when someone looks at you and says, I believe in you. I believe you can do this job. I believe you can be successful. You don't believe in you, but I believe in you. That makes a difference. Let's talk about some more power of words. You belong here. So I'm going to talk to you about Sharon, imposter syndrome. So Sharon was a lady that I met not too long ago who was successful at running her business, and it was an independent business. And she was asked to be part of a bigger trade organization. And I happened to be there at a meeting, and she was going to have to get up and be part of a panel. And she said, I can't do this. She goes, I can't, I just run a hardware store. I can't do this. And I said, sure you can. And she said, no, I can't. And I looked, I said, Sharon, you belong here. You've earned this. I believe in you. You belong here. And you know what? It had an effect on her. I could see it in her eyes. And she walked up there and she killed it. Absolutely killed it. I knew she was going to kill it anyways. But she needed to get over that hump. That's kind of what my try not to suck line is. I guess I got to word it differently, huh? So how many of us have had imposter syndrome? How many of us have been put into a job that we felt we didn't quite deserve yet? Didn't mean we didn't think we were going to be successful. It didn't mean we didn't want to be successful. But how many times have you felt like, God, I hope they don't ask me the right question, because if they do and I don't know the answer, they're going to realize I don't belong here. But we all have been put in things that are over our abilities that we had to rise to. That's why you're here. Everyone here in this room has been successful and is going to be more successful. And the reason you've done that is because you've risen to the occasion. But every one of us, I would hope, has felt imposter syndrome. Heck, I felt imposter syndrome before I walked on the stage. I said, what if Thea's right and I suck? But here we can help people. It's not just the entry-level people. It's the person who got newly promoted. Instead of saying congratulations, you earned it. You belong here. And sometimes maybe you don't know enough about them that you don't know for sure if they really do belong here or they really have earned it, but try giving them that motivation. And if they know they've got someone in their corner, someone that sees them, someone that believes in them, even if it's someone they don't have a tight relationship with, that makes all the difference in the world. You've got people in your organization that you feel are peaked out, or you've got identified that they couldn't go to that job because, but what if you believed in them? So let me share you another power of words. You've earned it. So I'm going to talk about Lauren, the competitor. Lauren's a young lady that we recently promoted in our organization. She was a college cross-country runner, and she's extraordinarily competitive. So we had her in our team leadership meeting, our first one, and we were talking about a subject. There wasn't a right or wrong answer, but we all kind of had our opinions, and her opinion was heavily slanted from the job she came from. So it wasn't, I don't want to say it wasn't right, but it wasn't probably not as right as the other opinions. Well, she kept pressing the point, and then after the meeting, she did a bunch of research, and she like showed us all, see, this is what I meant. So I called her in my office. I said, Lauren, I said, you're entitled to have your opinion. You don't need to justify it. I said, you've earned the right to be here. And you don't have to go do a bunch of research to show that you've already earned that right. So if you throw an opinion out or you throw an idea out and it's not the right idea, it doesn't mean it was the wrong idea, and you don't have to justify why you came up with that. You've earned the right to have an opinion. I thought that was pretty good advice. She said to me, no, Russ, I appreciate that, but let me tell you why I did that. She goes, I don't know if you heard, but when I threw my opinion out, one of the men on the team said, oh, that's cute. And she said, that pissed me off. And I said, good. So she said, I wanted to prove that it wasn't cute, that I had a reason for that. And I said, you know what? You still don't need to prove it. You've still earned the right. But now what you've earned the right to do is pull that person aside and said, I don't deserve to be talked like that. You would not talk to that like with one of my male peers. You would not talk to that way to your daughter. And he goes, well, I was just kidding. So either way, I want her to feel like you've earned it. You've been here. And you earned the right to be here. So all these words that I'm trying to share with you are the invisible people. They're things you can do for the invisible people. They're things you can do for your staff. You know, we always talk about that it's easier to find new business with existing customers than it is with new customers. Well, chances are you might find some existing people, existing talent with your existing talent, or additional talent with your existing talent. Let's put it that way. We got to open our eyes. You know, I heard in a speech that Sunny gave a number of years ago where she talked about our industry was male, pale, and stale. And I know, and it goes back, you got it from someone else, but we decided we'd give you credit. I will tell you that when I first heard it, I was kind of offended, probably the stale part. I know I'm male and pale, but stale? But there's a lot of truth to that. But that male, pale, stale, that's that stereotype we look for. Who is that person? You know, if I'm a senior executive and I'm male, pale, and stale, who do I think's a good guy a good person that can replace me? Probably someone who's male, pale, and stale. We have to break out of that. And a lot of time, but women do it. Different cultures do it. I mean, it's not something limited to just, in our industry, we happen to be predominantly white old men that are running it. But you look anywhere, it's really easy for us to pick people that are like us. It's easy for me to say, I'm a type A personality. I want to promote all type A personalities. Well, guess what? I can't have all type A personalities. I'm a big picture guy. Well, what if I have a bunch of big picture guys working for me? Who's going to do the details? Or I'm a detail guy. I really like the details. I don't like those big picture guys. No, you have to have that right balance. So we have to find the people in our organizations that are different than us. But a lot of times we overlook it because there's some quirk about them that makes them invisible. I actually had a point in my career where I was invisible, and I worked for NCR Corporation at their corporate office, and I was a financial analyst, and I used to produce this report that all the vice presidents wanted to see was our sales report. It's kind of a long because we sold such big, expensive stuff that took years, they wanted to know what orders came in. They would eagerly look for that report, but I would walk in, I would go to their offices, I'd do it twice a week, walk around to all the offices, the CO, and I could walk right in their office, put it on their desk. They didn't see me. They just wanted that report. They couldn't even tell you who the person was I was getting. Now, as a young 22-year-old college grad, I was like, wow, I'm getting all this exposure to the CEO and the vice president. No, I wasn't getting anything. I was invisible. And the one who taught me that was the mailroom guy. Mailrooms are this thing we used to have in big companies where instead of emails, they came around, they dropped mail off, and these people pushed carts around. We don't have those anymore, really. But the mailroom guy is the one who said to me, I'm invisible. He goes, the mailroom guy doesn't knock on the door. He walks in, he puts the mail in, he goes, Russ, I'll walk in, and people, they'll be talking like I'm not there. They'll be talking about things that I shouldn't hear, either business-wise or personal, because I'm totally invisible. They'll walk by me in the hallway, and they won't even acknowledge me, because I'm the mailroom guy. Again, an invisible person. So, who are your invisible people, and what can you do to engage them? I want you to think about that. Who are the people that we have that we don't see? We haven't told them we believe in them. We haven't given them a chance to earn it, and we don't make them feel they belong. And that's the challenge I'd like you to walk out of here today. You know, we come to these seminars, and there's all sorts of ideas. I always say if you can get one idea, just one idea and go back with it, that's a good thing. So I hope this has given you an idea, given you some things to think about. And with that, I'll say thank you.